Hello and welcome to the Eagle-Tribune newsroom for our state Senate debate. I'm Brian Messenger, and with me now are the three Democrats running in the 2nd Essex and Middlesex District, Debbie Silberstein, Barry Finegold, and Jack Wilson. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
Our debate today consists of questions sent in from our readers. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to questions, and if they choose, 30 seconds for a rebuttal. But first, we start with 1 minute opening statements, and we will begin with Ms. Silberstein. Thank you.
I'm running because I can't accept things as they are, and I think we can do much better. The same old just wasn't cutting it for me anymore. I spent the last 10 years on the Andover Finance Committee and on the Andover School Committee. And noticeably, over the last few years, our cities and towns were falling further and further behind, not unlike our families and businesses. I can't guarantee that my children's future will be as secure as yours and mine were. I can't accept a graduation rate of 55 to 60% in Lawrence or a dropout rate of 10 to 20%. I can't accept 1 in 5 people in parts of this district out of work, and I can't accept a tax code that stifles entrepreneurs and businesses. I can't stand by and let our representatives argue endlessly while pension costs, healthcare costs, and globalization strangle our state. I can't accept any of these things, and neither should you. Government can make a positive difference, but we need fresh leaders. I know when people get involved and support a common mission, they find a positive solution. I know it because I've seen it happen, and I've worked to make it happen my entire life. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Finegold.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Eagle-Tribune for sponsoring this debate. I am running to bring a common sense approach to the state Senate. I've had the pleasure of representing 3 out of the 4 communities in this district. In that time, I've been an independent voice, doing such things as giving up my pay raise and taking on House leadership when I thought it was important to do so. I'm married to my wife, Amy. We have 2 small children, Ava and Ella. Both my wife and I are small business owners. We know what it's like to make a payroll, and we know what it's like to have expenses. I'm running for state Senate because the challenge of this district have never been greater, and I have the experience both in the public and the private sector and the track record to go from day one. During this campaign, I've knocked on over 2,000 doors, and the #1 issue I hear is jobs. And there's some specific things that we can do to get people back to work. The first is to finish the interchange off of I-93. Second is to finish Northern Essex Community College, which not only will bring people to the downtown, but will also be a great job creator. And third, make this area a leader in green collar jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finegold. And now, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, and thank you again to the Eagle-Tribune for hosting this debate. For months, I've been talking to families throughout this district, and every day I hear the same frustration in their voices that I feel myself about state government. And that is that Beacon Hill is out of touch with the struggles of the average family, and it's been that way for some time. A generation of Beacon Hill insiders, including State Representative Barry Finegold, has been putting up roadblocks to recovery through ill-conceived tax increases, special interest-driven legislation, and just outright gridlock. And they believe they're accountable to no one for that. The choice is clear in this primary because it's a choice between more of the same and new leadership going in a new direction, which is what I offer. It's time for leadership that will once again stand up for families and businesses in the district, and once and for all stand against the insiders and the special interests that have brought the state to where we are now. As state senator, I will not stop until a comprehensive jobs bill is passed that provides tax incentives to businesses that create jobs here in Massachusetts. And I will not stop until we repeal the sales tax increases that have crippled the struggling Merrimack Valley businesses. Our political culture is broken. People everywhere are frustrated with government, and with good reason. Now is the time for new leadership from outside the political system that will bring us in a new direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to our first question. We'll start with Mr. Finegold. It's actually a 2-part question. What state agency, program, or service will you target for budget savings? What agency, program, or service will you advocate for to preserve level funding?
Well, I think one of the things that you have to do when you look at the state budget is I don't want to disproportionately cut, say, mental health. I don't want to disproportionately cut, say, higher education. So when we have to make cuts, which we've done a lot of cuts, I believe you have to do that across the board. And I don't think that there are a lot of important things like, say mental health, say higher ed, and I don't want to just single out one. Now, I always think we always can do more with less. I'm proud of the fact that I support transportation reform, pension reform, and I will continue to push for other reforms that will make sure that we continue to do more with less.
Thank you, Mr. Finegold. Mr. Wilson.
Well, with respect to Representative Finegold, he says he likes to do more with less, but it seems we're doing less with more. Just 20 short years ago, the state budget was $9 billion, and 20 years since then, it's tripled. $28 billion of taxpayer money is being spent, yet at the same time, we're seeing reductions in services in every community in this district. So to suggest we're doing more with less so that we can take the same old approaches and fix the problem is just not going to hold water. To my mind, we need to look at every dollar that's being spent in the budget, a full and take a zero-based budget approach to every budget that we have in the state, so that in fact we justify every dollar, make sure it's spent efficiently. The state does a terrible job of spending money efficiently on behalf of the taxpayers. And under no circumstances should public safety, public education, or public health be compromised for lesser priorities. We need to begin the hard work, and it starts with forcing efficiencies, and 10% across the board efficiencies is a minimum start to get that issue moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Now, Ms. Silberstein.
Thank you. I'm going to answer the question. I think as a freshman senator, what I'd like to do is work with the other 10 senators on day one, and within the first 60 days, identify areas of waste. The probation department is obviously one of them. And then I believe there are probably more that have not been identified because of the patronage that has existed in government. I think with 10 new people, it would be easy to identify those. The second thing I do is really start to focus on regionalization and consolidation to start to save some real money. And I would immediately want to delete some unfunded mandates that I think have been crippling cities and towns for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silberstein. On to our second question. Mr. Wilson, you will be able to answer this one first. What will you do to close loopholes in the state pension system?
Well, we need to begin immediately by looking at where the state failed to do it in the last go-around of pension reform, declared victory, and fell far short of it. We need to basically look at it from the bottom up and not just hold harmless certain areas of either pensioners or classes of pension types and say that we can't go after that. We need to review, make sure we do it going forward, and so it's not just about stopping the abuses that exist now, it's making sure that going forward we're able to ensure that the pensions are square with what they should be and not outrageous as we've seen happen over the course of the last generation of pension bills that have gone through.
Thank you. I apologize, did not offer a rebuttal for the first question, but you guys will have a chance to offer a rebuttal after this question.
I did have a response to Jack's comment, but I'll wait till the end.
We'll move on with this second question. Ms. Silberstein.
Okay, so in terms of loopholes in pension reform, right? What I would look to do, I think, is increase the retirement age in the public sector. It is much lower than it is in the private sector. I think that has to change. I think state government needs to be much more supportive of cities and towns. A lot of issues that have increased the size of pensions have crept up from local government, from agreements that have been made, there have been a lack of transparency. So I would work in state government to try to stop that. And in addition, I think all new contracts going forward should be fresh contracts, not burdened by past patronage.
Thank you. Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, just talking about some of the things that were done. We did away with the one-day rule, where in the past, if you worked one day, you get for a full year. That was taken out. You used to be able to work, say, as a library trustee and get credit for that. That was taken out. And then, what Billy Bulger tried to do was he got credit for housing. That's been taken off. I happen to agree with Deb. I think we should look at increasing the retirement age. And I think one thing that we have to do as well is keep an eye on our what's happening to the treasurer and pension costs, and make sure that the treasurer is getting the most out of every pension dollar and making sure we're getting good returns. And I also think that if a local board is not adequately getting returns, then they should be put in to the state pension fund as well. So,
thank you, Mr. Finegold. Mr. Wilson, rebuttal.
I'd like to just, the question is begged as to why that hasn't already been done. Representative Finegold's been in the position in the legislature to be able to affect those changes he now says he's going to do going forward. My question is, why hasn't it been done yet?
Thank you. Ms. Silberstein.
Yeah, I wanted to say there was a debate last week at the Memorial Hall Library in Andover. One of the Republican candidates actually suggested that the legislators step up to the plate, and not that it should be about public service, and not to take pension or to change pension reform starting with state legislatures, and I would be willing to join with him if he's elected as well in spearheading that. I think that was a very good idea, and I'd like to reach across the aisle and do that.
Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, I think the point to focus on is, what has been done. For the longest time, things like this were allowed. There's a bunch of us that stepped up and said the status quo isn't acceptable, and we did change these things. Now, I do advocate for certain things like potentially increasing the retirement age, but I do feel these were great steps in the right direction. And for too long, these types of things were being let forward, and we did step up and we did make these changes.
Thank you. Third question, Ms. Silberstein, we'll start with you. If elected, what will you do to reach out to voters throughout your term and not just at election time?
That's a great question. I'm spending a lot of time in the district, obviously, and the one thing I am hearing from people over and over again is that people come around for a vote and they don't see them again, and they come back. The first thing I want to do is to work with everybody I've talked to during this campaign and develop something in the form of a strategic plan for the district that would set forth the goals and objectives during my term as state senator for the next 2 to 3 years. And so I would like to work collaboratively with all the stakeholders at the grassroots level to identify the goals and then work with them to do that. That would be my first step, Brian.
Thank you. Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that we can do as elected officials is to listen. And that's why during this campaign I've knocked on over 2,000 doors listening to people and hear what's on their minds, what's important to them. And I think that when you do serve, I think probably one of the most important things you also do is constituent services. And that's one of the things I'm most proud about, how responsive my office has been. Whether it's helping out Ann Belanger, a woman who lives on North Street, who's having trouble getting veteran services for her, because of her husband, and needed help. We helped her out. Or whether it was Joe Kuchar, someone in Lawrence who needed nursing home services for his wife Susan. Those are things that really matter to people. We have a rule in my office, sundown rule. Everybody gets called back that day. I think one thing people in the district I've represented have said is I'm around. I'm always willing to listen. We always can't always agree, but I'm always around, always willing to listen, and always being responsive to people's needs.
Thank you, Mr. Finegold. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. I agree with the idea that it starts by listening, but I'm not hearing what Representative Finegold has been hearing. Quite frankly, I think if he had been listening for the last several years, he wouldn't have voted to increase the sales taxes that have been increased. Wouldn't have agreed to send $35 million to the city of Lawrence without more accountability, which was that everybody that I'm talking to was telling me and what I'm hearing. It starts by listening. My cell phone is going to be available to constituents once I'm elected. I've given it out through the course of this campaign. People will be able to reach me. I expect to meet regularly with the city councils and the boards of selectmen in each of the district and create a constant dialogue with respect to constituents. There'll be an open door policy. I'll expect that to be the same once I get elected. There are any one of a number of ways that can be used to stay in contact with the voters and with the public at large, and I will be using every one of them going forward.
Thank you very much.
I have a rebuttal. I would like to say that Senator Tucker, who is retiring, I think has had one of the best staff offices that I've dealt with in terms of constituent service. And so if I have the opportunity, I would retain as many of them as I could to continue to serve the district in that manner.
If I can just add, one of the things that I have done is regularly appear in front of the Board of Selectmen, regularly talk with city councilors. And I think it's important because sometimes what you have to do is you have to give them the good news and sometimes you have to give them the bad news. But I do think it is very important to have a good working relationship with your local officials, which I do. And I think it is very critical that you continue to appear in front of these boards, talk to them, hear what they're thinking, and time's up.
Do we get a second rebuttal?
We don't get a second rebuttal. Mr. Wilson.
I'm fine. No need for rebuttal.
Can I take it?
I made my point.
We'll move on to the next question. Mr. Finegold, you'll start. Do you support legislation limiting illegal immigrants' access to state benefits?
Yeah, well, first I think I can answer that in a two-part question. That I do think that we do need to do a better job on the federal level of immigration. There's still too much confusion. It's still very difficult for those who want to follow through with the process. So I do think we need to, on the federal level, we need to do more. On a local level, I do not support in-state tuition for children of illegal immigrants. Once again, there is just limited resources, And I do think we have to prioritize where those resources go.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
I do not support extending benefits to children of illegal immigrants because of the policy behind it as well as the cost.
Ms. Silberstein.
Yeah, and for me, I have to be honest, guys, it depends what the benefits are. I would support in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. I know it's not a popular position. I can tell you that Mike Widmer from the Mass Taxpayers Foundation has a report online from 2006 that shows that that actually benefits revenues that would increase to the state in form of increasing students in public colleges. I will also add that I think that it benefits overall the citizenry of the Commonwealth and builds social capital. I think if anybody read the Globe yesterday, they saw how higher ed has taken a hit in the Commonwealth and lower enrollment. I think it would obviously be beneficial to higher ed as well. So that is where I would differentiate myself.
Thank you, Mr. Finegold.
I think one of the things that is hard is there are a set of rules, and I had a situation where somebody was at one of our technical schools and they moved to New Hampshire, and they were now living in New Hampshire, but they wanted to continue on in the technical school, but they weren't taxpayers of Massachusetts. So as hard as it was, as heartbreaking as it was, we do have a set of rules, and I do think we need to follow those rules. Now, I'm not disagreeing that there has to be more work done on the federal level, but if we're going to have these types of rules, then I think we should follow them.
Mr. Wilson.
Well, it comes down to an issue of cost at core. If we've got a situation, we are seeing layoffs in public safety personnel, and we are seeing reductions in services in public safety, public education. Notwithstanding the need for efficiencies in those areas, we should not be looking at new ways to spend money. It's like thinking I want to put a built-in pool in my backyard, but my foundation needs to be repaired on the house, and I can only afford one. I'd be silly to put in the pool if I haven't fixed the foundation. We need to stick to core services before we're looking at the typical same old tired approach of let's just spend more money that we don't have.
Thank you. Ms. Silberstein.
No, just clarify that it would be differentiating for me on the specific benefit.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, you'll answer the next question first. Do you support the idea of a state-backed financial control board in the city of Lawrence?
Absolutely. And had I been in the legislature when the $35 million stabilization bill was passed last spring, I would have fought until it actually was in place at the outset. At a minimum, that's what's needed in the city to bring the state in, which I think the state has been partly responsible for creating the fiscal situation in Lawrence, to be at the table, to force the unions back to the table, to negotiate the concessions that need to be negotiated, to restore those cuts in the police and fire department that have left the city completely unsafe and affected the region in a negative way. Absolutely. And if in fact the control board, once it's in place, is unable to meet that goal of getting the unions to the table and negotiating those concessions, then a more dramatic step of perhaps receivership would need to be looked at. But absolutely, at a minimum, a control board should be in place. It should be already in place.
Thank you. Ms. Silberstein.
Yeah, I think a control board is really a model of the past, and part of what I think I bring to the table is somebody that has really never been involved in state government at that level, and so I'm not going to be constrained by models that have been used. I don't think a control board is going to work. I think Lawrence deserves much more than that. There are people in the city that care so much about where they live. They want to be destigmatized. They want to live in a place with good schools and safe streets. A control board is not going to solve the problems. My proposal in response to that would be to develop a collaborative plan with all the stakeholders, including the mayor, the city council, state government, federal government, because that would help to bring in grant money and some innovative ideas. I would use philanthropy, I would use business leaders. And from that, we would draw a vision for the city for the next 3 to 5 years, and then state money would be linked to the goals and objectives to achieve that vision. I think the rollout of the bill was totally flawed, and I think it's an example of the dysfunction on Beacon Hill. It did not help Lawrence, and bothered me tremendously.
Moving on, Mr. Finegold.
Yeah. First of all, talking about the city of Lawrence, what's happening in Lawrence is happening in other places as well. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania basically defaulted on their bonds. In Newark, New Jersey, they're having such budget problems, they're actually taking toilet paper out of the public restroom. So it is tough all over the place. Now, as far as the control board goes, I don't want to take away the voice of the people. You know, the people elected a city council. The city council has taken some very difficult votes. They voted for a meals tax, they've taken a pay cut, and they've actually, you know, they balanced the budget. Now, obviously, there are some issues with public safety that I think everyone's concerned about. You know, there is discussions going on between the mayor and the unions right now, but I think it's really important that, you know, the people elected a city council, 6 out of 9 people were new, and I don't think, given Governor Deval Patrick, you know, the control of the city, I think is the right thing to do right now, where basically you have a city council working along with the mayor, making some very difficult decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Finegold. Mr. Wilson, anything to add?
Yes, yes. The bill that was passed last spring that was championed by Representative Finegold was deeply flawed because it allowed for the evisceration of public safety. If that is what it takes to balance the budget, then balancing the budget was the wrong objective to begin with. And to just sit back and say we've got some issues with public safety experts from the public safety commissioner on down, the fire marshal on down, to every fire chief and fire union in the state has said that there is a fundamental issue at hand right now with public safety in the city. It's not just an issue.
Moving on, Ms. Silberstein.
The problem with state government over the last decade is that we have been doing short-term fixes to really serious problems. The control board is not going to solve the problems in Lawrence, and I know Barry has said that he doesn't support that, and I've proposed a plan, whether you think it's going to work or not, but do you have a plan that you think would work for the city? Because
absolutely.
the same old
no,
isn't going to work.
And what we've been doing, and Brian, could I take some extra time on this, if that's all right? Maybe
30 seconds.
Okay.
Then we want to rebut.
Yeah, that's fine. But,
you know,
right, Jack?
Right. That's fine. And it's good. But I think it's important to talk about, you know, some of the stuff we have done. You know, we have met with the mayor, we have met with the unions, we've worked with the state.
You've met with the unions? You've met with the unions and the mayors in the discussions with the city during negotiations. You've sat in the discussion, negotiations.
No.
Okay.
But nothing's happened.
No, I want to make the point.
People are dying, literally dying in the city.
No, the unions asked us to sit down, and we did. But I think what's important to understand is that, you know, this is a situation that's happening all over the state where there's, you know, issues between the mayor and unions, and this has to be worked out. And one of the things I think the Eagle-Tribune editorialized correctly about is you can't have one-time fixes. And it's very difficult, but for the longest time, it's always been these one-time revenues.
30 seconds back.
And we have to find, you know, work together in this long-term solution.
Moving on. Next question, Ms. Silberstein, answer first, please. What must be done so small business owners and the self-employed can access affordable health insurance?
God, if I had the complete answer to that question, I would be probably the richest person in America. Healthcare costs are killing local governments, they're killing small businesses, and they're killing families. We have now the greatest growth in our country ever in entrepreneurs. And government should actually be supporting those entrepreneurs to become successful small business owners, but we won't be able to because of the increasing health insurance costs. So the first thing I would do would be to restrict the rate of pay of those high-paying executives in the insurance industry, focus more on preventive care and wellness, and I also believe that tort reform is going to be necessary to help control costs.
Thank you. Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, as a small business owner, you know, the law firm that I helped start, you know, we pay, you know, a lot of money each month for healthcare. One of the things that we've not been able to do, you know, is to be able to group together. So if you're a large organization, you could group together. You know, what was recently passed is now they're going to allow small businesses to be able to group together to make, you know, insurance more affordable. Long term, I think there's a couple things that we have to do to reduce healthcare. I think one of the first things is for people to use their local hospitals. You know, in certain situations you need to go into Boston, but we have very good hospitals here, and it's so much more cost effective to use our local hospitals. Second thing, I think for prescription drug coverage, you know, and this is more of a federal issue probably, but why do we spend $7 billion a year on prescription advertising? To me, it's waste. I also think we should give coupons to seniors to help them out with their prescription drugs as well. I mean, I hear time and time again the high cost of prescription drugs, and I think we have to help our seniors out.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
I would agree too, and Barry's been in a position for the last 14 years to do that, and obviously he's failed.
No, but I think we did do that.
This is the issue going forward, is that the change that we need, the improvements that we're speaking to in these questions cannot come from within the same current and coming class of politicians because they've had their chance to do it. When it comes to the state health bill that was passed and followed on by the national health bill, it dealt with the issue of access and coverage. But it was a half measure because it did not deal with the issue of cost. And right now, small businesses, which are already being squeezed because of tax policies embraced by Barry Finegold, are having a tough time surviving because of the push on the healthcare costs. We need to bring every stakeholder to the table. More easily said than done, but it needs to begin, and it hasn't. Insurance companies, healthcare providers, pharmaceuticals, employers, employees at the table figuring out how to bring costs down. That's a process that should have begun a long time ago, and it needs to begin immediately. Because coverage is one piece of it. The major issue, the tougher challenge, which again is being ignored by the state, is cost.
Thank you. Anything to add, Ms. Silberstein?
Yeah, I think this is really a complex problem, and I think it takes a comprehensive solution. And I would hope to serve in the Senate and really look at it deeply, because politics has been so reactive, which is why we haven't solved our problems. I did also want to add that we have to look at some end-of-life care, really difficult decisions in controlling costs. And I also wanted to talk about health savings accounts that I think have worked really well on the local level, and I think to make those more accessible, that could really help small businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, I would just echo, I think health savings accounts are a good idea, and I think we have to continue to try to do whatever we can to help seniors, with their prescription drugs. I mean, that's, of all the issues I hear out there, that is a very, very difficult, issue for a lot of seniors. And I do think, what I voted for, I want to continue to work on coupons for seniors to get prescription drugs. I feel that is something that, we should get done.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
I have no reason to rebut. I've fully answered my question.
Thank you very much. We'll now finish with 1 minute closing statements. And we will start with Mr. Finegold.
Okay. Let me just pull this out. Okay. Well, first, I want to thank the Tribune again for having this debate. I've always been that person who people told me what I can't do, and I've never been afraid to be an independent voice. When the towns of Drake, Tewksbury, and Andover were faced with high trash tipping fees because of being forced into a contract from the state, there were those who said that there's nothing we can do, but I stood up and I fought and got relief for these communities. When I filed the Baby Safe Havens law, there was people saying we're not going to save a single newborn. Well, after 6 years, we've saved over 15 lives. And when there was a movement to do away with term limits for the speaker, I stood up, I fought against it, I paid a price for it, but in the end, I was proven right. The challenges are great, and I will continue to be an independent voice and fight for this district, because we have to find innovative ways to create jobs. We have to be a leader of cutting-edge education in our classrooms. We have to move from a fossil fuel economy to a green economy. The challenges are great, but I have the experience, the will, the common sense, and no one will work harder to get this job done for you. Thank you, and I ask for your vote on September 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Finegold. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. And again, thank the Eagle-Tribune for hosting this debate. In my opening statement, I said that the choice for voters in this primary is very clear. The economy remains broken, but so does public confidence in state government. The incumbents, including Representative Finegold, who have led us to where we are now, are incapable of leading us out. The time has passed for anyone who's been in office to say that they have the right solutions to the state's economic problems. He's had his chance. The solutions can't and won't come from those people who helped create the problem to begin with. As state senator, I will work to fix what's broken. I won't be going to Beacon Hill as some stepping stone to some other office, and I'm willing to stand against party leadership when it's the right thing to do for my district, not just when I think it's the right thing to do. And I will listen first and always to the residents and businesses in this district and be their voice on Beacon Hill. I'm running for state senate as the clear alternative to the status quo, but more importantly than that, my platform is exactly what we need to bring the state back from the brink. Private sector job creation, prioritizing state budgets so that public safety and public education are not compromised. And I will do a far better job of listening to the residents of this district. I ask for your vote on September 14th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Silberstein.
I also want to thank the Trib, and will tell you, running for the local school board, we had more debates than running for the state senate seat. So my hat's off to you for doing this. Every election is about a choice. If you're happy with the way things are, you should vote for Barry. And if you think solutions from the past are what we need today, you should vote for Jack. Both have a long history of working in government. But if you want a new voice, new blood, someone who doesn't owe anything to anybody, vote for me, Debbie Silberstein, on September 14th. I've been a community activist my whole life, an engaged citizen who knows what it's like to raise a family on a budget, run a business, and run a school committee in the face of budget cuts and unfunded mandates. This job was not part of my life plan, but I really feel compelled by these times to serve. I started this campaign with a mailing that talked about government working best when it listens. I asked for responses and called everyone who responded. I listened. People want and deserve more than they're getting now. 1/4 of the state Senate will turn over in January. I want to be part of that new class of leaders with a real opportunity to make a difference in these transformational times, and I ask for your vote on September 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to the three of you for sharing your views with us today. Thanks again to our readers for submitting your questions. The primary election is next Tuesday, September 14th. The general election is November 2nd. Thank you all again for tuning in to EagleTribune.com.